Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
What if I told you that the company hosting your website is actively preparing for a future where humans aren't even the ones reading it?
Yeah, or what if I told you that the servers required to power our new AI future are so unimaginably expensive that they're, bankrupting the budgets for human payroll today?
It's wild. The transition to tomorrow is getting really messy and, well, we have the receipts. So good morning and welcome to Connecting the Dots, brought to you by Snarful Solutions Group. We're right here in sunny Sacramento, California. I'm Alex.
And I'm Morgan.
We are just thrilled you're joining us today. Our mission every morning is to take this absolute flood of tech news, filter out the noise, and figure out what it actually means for you.
Right, for your business, your life, all of it. And today is Thursday, April 2nd, 2026.
Yes, it is. But before we get into the heavy hitters today, let's get you situated with the morning updates.
So you'll definitely want to keep your sunglasses handy if you're stepping out in Sacramento today. We are looking at beautiful, clear skies, a high of 64 degrees Fahrenheit, and a light breeze blowing 3 to 13 miles per hour.
A truly perfect spring morning.
Exactly.
The financial markets, though, are feeling a little less breezy, unfortunately.
Yeah, rough morning there.
Yeah, the Dow closed down 1.16%. dropping to 45,930.74. The S&P 500 took a minor stumble, dropping 0.53%.
Ouch.
And Bitcoin felt the pressure too, taking a 3.32% hit and dropping down to $65,831.
So a slightly red morning across the boards, which means you might be dragging a bit as you fire up those spreadsheets today.
Which makes this the absolute perfect moment to mention our sponsor, Strong Coffee.
Oh, yes.
Look, the morning routine is sacred, but Strong Coffee just completely elevates it. This is premium instant coffee that actually tastes like a traditional high-end brew.
Yeah, it doesn't taste instant at all.
Not at all. But the magic is in the formulation. It is packed with 15 grams of protein, MCTs, and adaptogens like ashwagandha.
Which means you don't get the jitters.
Right.
Or that, devastating 2 o'clock crash. You just get clean, sustained energy that keeps you focused.
Honestly, throwing on my favorite Scony shoes, grabbing a fresh Pins and Aces polo, and mixing up a cup of strong coffee has basically become my ultimate productivity hack for a Thursday.
It really gets you going.
You just feel ready to take on the inbox, So if you want to upgrade your mornings, use promo code SNARFL for 20% off your entire purchase at strongcoffeecompany.com.
That is strongcoffeecompany.com, promo code SNARFL.
All right, let's shift gears into the core of the show. It is time for the Morning Star, the Smartful Tech article report.
Let's do it.
So yesterday, April 1st, marked a monumental milestone in Silicon Valley. Apple celebrated its 50th anniversary.
Wow, 50 years.
Yeah, founded in a garage in 1976, and now they're sitting at a market cap of around $3.7 trillion.
Just unbelievable growth.
Unbelievable. And to mark the occasion, CEO Tim Cook did this massive, expansive interview with Esquire. But they didn't just reminisce. Apple actually unveiled a splashy new low-cost laptop called the Neo.
And the Neo is, it's an incredibly telling product. It comes in these vibrant, punchy colors, including this very striking citrus yellow, and it's explicitly geared toward the influencer generation.
Right.
It's slim, it's peppy, and visually it is designed to literally pop on camera.
Wait, let's pause on that for a second, because the irony there is just too rich.
Oh, totally.
Think about the Apple buy from the early days.
Yeah.
It was this clunky, heavy, bay workhorse of a machine. Fast forward 50 years, and Apple is designing sleek, citrus-colored tech that serves as a literal prop for social media videos.
Yeah.
It feels like they're building scenery as much as they are building computers now.
Well, the Esquire piece actually captured that exact vibe. They described the New York launch event, which was just packed with hundreds of influencers.
Literally.
Right. And when the Neo was revealed on stage, the crowd didn't just clap. They immediately raised their iPhones on gimbals and tripods to live stream their reaction.
Oh, wow. That is so perfectly modern Apple.
It really is. But, Tim Cook was adamant in the interview that despite this massive shift in how the hardware is utilized, Apple is fundamentally still Steve Jobs' company.
Interesting.
Yeah, he insists the company is permanently anchored in the ideals of simplicity and collaboration.
Right, and he was very deliberate about defining Apple's immutable core values.
Exactly. He pointed to privacy, treating it as an absolute human right rather than just like a feature. He highlighted accessibility, ensuring that devices are built from the ground up for people who are blind or have motor impairments.
Yeah.
And he leaned into education and heavily emphasized the environment.
And the environmental data he shared is genuinely staggering.
Yeah.
Apple has lowered its carbon emissions by 60% over the last decade.
Which is huge.
It is. I mean, I want to underline how difficult that is. Normally, as a hardware company's revenue skyrockets, they are manufacturing millions more physical items, which means emissions go up.
Right. More stuff equals more pollution, usually.
Yep.
Exactly. So decoupling revenue growth from carbon output by 60% is a massive logistical triumph.
It requires totally rethinking their supply chains. But, the Esquire interviewer pushed Cook on another tricky aspect of modern logistics, which is politics.
Oh, sure.
They specifically asked about working with the Trump administration. They pointed out that Apple's legendary Think Different ad campaigns championed rebels and activists, and those views often clash with current federal policies.
And Cook's response was honestly stripped of any grandstanding. He simply described the current administration as very accessible.
Yeah, his philosophy is purely pragmatic. He essentially argued that you can sit down with officials and state your case. They might not agree with your point of view, but you're at the table engaging.
Right.
Cook believes that being in the room and moving the needle slightly is always better than standing on the sidelines and yelling into the void.
So it's basically like a train running on tracks.
Yeah.
The core values, privacy, sustainability, human dignity, those are the steel rails. They are fixed.
I like that analogy. Right. But the political scenery outside the train window, that changes every 4 to 8 years. Whether you're rolling through a Democratic landscape or a Republican one, the company's job is to keep the train moving forward without derailing.
And staying on the tracks is driving serious capital into the U.S. economy. Cook highlighted a $600 billion investment in stateside manufacturing.
That is an insane number.
It is. That includes a $2.5 billion injection into Corning Glass in Harrodsburg, Kentucky, to produce the screens for your iPhones and watches. He also pointed to expanded production with TSMC, the Taiwanese company that actually manufactures the microscopic silicon brains inside those devices right up in Washington State.
So look, if you're listening to this on an Android device or a Windows PC, you might be wondering why a 50-year-old fruit company's anniversary matters to you.
Fair question.
It matters because Apple's hardware, specifically the iPhone, the App Store, and those cinema-grade pocket cameras, quite literally birthed the modern creator economy. They built the foundation that changed how human beings publish their lives.
So Apple gave us the physical hardware to film our lives, but that creates a massive secondary problem.
Which is?
Where does all that digital content actually live?
Right.
For 2 decades, the answer has mostly been WordPress. But a company called Cloudflare thinks the underlying plumbing of the internet is rotten, and they are trying to rewrite it.
Yeah, let's get into the second story. Cloudflare just launched a new content management system called EmDash. It is open source and MIT licensed, which, just means anyone can use, modify, or distribute the code for free without jumping through legal hoops.
Right.
And Cloudflare is aggressively marketing EmDash as the spiritual successor to WordPress.
And to grasp the scale of that ambition, you have to look at WordPress's sheer dominance. WordPress powers roughly 40% of the entire internet.
That's almost half the web.
Exactly. Almost half the web is running on software that turns 24 years old this year.
Which, look, if you've ever managed a WordPress site, updated a plugin, and watched your entire website crash into a white screen of death.
We've all been there.
Ugh, the worst. But you know that 24 years of legacy code comes with some very creaky floorboards.
Yeah, and the biggest vulnerability lies in how WordPress handles plugins using an older coding language called PHP. The Cloudflare team noted a terrifying statistic. 96% of the security issues on WordPress platforms originate from third-party plugins.
Wow, 96%.
Yeah. Because of the way PHP operates within WordPress, when you install a simple plugin to, say, compress a JPEG image or add a contact form, you are basically handing that plugin the master keys to your entire server.
Oh, that's not good.
No. It can access the database, the file system, everything. If a hacker finds a single flaw in that tiny image compressor, they own your entire website.
Okay, so Cloudflare's solution with EmDash is to build the entire system from the ground up using a modern, strictly typed language called TypeScript, right?
Sure.
And they deploy something called dynamic workers.
Yes.
And this creates a completely isolated sandbox for every single plugin. Wait, let's break that down for the non-developers listening. How does a dynamic worker sandbox actually fix the master key problem?
Okay, so think of it as an explicitly permissioned system. In EmDash, if a plugin wants to send an email, it has to declare that specific intention before it's ever installed.
Okay.
The system grants it the ability to send an email and absolutely nothing else. It cannot quietly rummage through your user database because the pathway to the database literally doesn't exist for that plugin.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, it's like hiring a bouncer for every individual room in your house rather than giving one guy the master key.
That security upgrade alone is huge. But here is where EmDash makes a profound pivot into the future. It includes built-in support for a standard called by402.
Yes, this is the crazy part.
It allows creators to charge AI agents micropayments on a pay-per-use basis just to access their content.
Which completely flips the fundamental economics of the internet on its head. For decades, the web has operated on a simple trade. I give you free articles, you give me your human eyeballs so I can show you banner ads. But AI agents don't have eyeballs. They don't buy shoes from sidebar ads. They simply scrape your hard work to train their massive language models or to summarize your ideas for their users.
So how does by402 actually extract money from a scraper? Is it like a crypto wallet?
No, it's a standardized web protocol. An AI crawler arrives at your site, and EmDash uses by402 to essentially throw up a micro toll booth.
Okay.
It tells the AI, to read this text, it will cost you a fraction of a cent. The AI agent, which is funded by whatever tech giant built it, digitally shakes hands with the protocol and pays the microtransaction instantly.
That is wild. We are literally watching the internet transition from a web built for human readers to a web built for AI consumption.
Completely.
But before we all abandon our current websites, we need a reality check. An article from Search Engine Journal took a hard look at EmDash and threw a lot of cold water on Cloudflare's marketing.
They really did. The Search Engine Journal author pointed out that while the back-end security and by402 technology are brilliant, EmDash is practically unusable for a normal human being right now.
Yeah.
It is currently sitting in a version 0.1.0 developer beta. There is no graphical user interface. No drag-and-drop builder.
Right, to even get a site off the ground, you have to use a command line interface. You are literally staring at a black screen, typing cryptic text prompts like it's 1985.
Exactly. It's built on a web framework called Astro, which is powerful, but it's not a traditional website builder.
And the SEJPs argued that everyday bloggers and small business owners don't lay awake at night dreaming about isolated runtimes.
No, they care about easy publishing, good SEO tools, and simple booking plugins.
So EmDash is essentially a state-of-the-art commercial pigeon. It is totally fireproof. Thanks to the sandboxing, there will never, ever be a grease fire.
Right.
But the architects forgot to build a front door for the customers. If you aren't a highly trained software engineer, you can't even get in the building to turn on the stove.
It's a great analogy. Cloudflare has successfully designed the infrastructure for the AI era, but we are years away from everyday creators being able to casually use it.
Yeah, and while Cloudflare works on the plumbing for our AI future, the sheer financial cost of forcing that future into existence is causing some brutal realities today.
Which brings us to our third story.
Oracle has just executed an incredibly deep round of layoffs, abruptly cutting around 10,000 employees in India.
That represents roughly 20% of their entire workforce in that country.
Wow.
And reports indicate this is just one piece of a global restructuring effort aimed at eliminating 30,000 jobs worldwide.
These cuts are gutting major divisions. They're heavily impacting the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Unit, a struggling $28 billion acquisition called Cerner Healthcare, and the Oracle Financial Software Services Unit.
And what's terrifying is that Oracle isn't failing. The primary driver behind these mass layoffs is the staggering, eye-watering cost of artificial intelligence.
Exactly. Analysts from TD Cowen noted that Oracle, like many legacy tech giants, isn't seeing sufficient short-term returns on its AI investments. But the arms race requires them to keep spending aggressively.
Right. Building out the data centers to handle AI is a logistical and financial nightmare. We are talking about an estimated $156 billion in capital expenditure just to procure 3 million GPUs and the necessary cooling and power infrastructure.
Sit with that number for a second. $156 billion for computer chips.
That's unfathomable.
The scale of that expense is so heavy that it's bending the company's business model. Oracle is reportedly forcing customers to put down 40% upfront deposits just to offset the raw hardware cost.
Yeah, when a company needs that much liquid cash to buy physical servers, human salaries become the easiest line item to slash.
And the human toll of that corporate math is just grim. Remote workers in Washington state are being heavily hit, with WARN Act notices taking effect June 1st.
But the reporting uncovered a particularly painful detail, right? Employees are losing their restricted stock units right before they vest.
Yes. For those outside the tech bubble, restricted stock units, or RSUs, are essentially company shares given as part of your compensation, but you don't actually own them until a specific date.
Right. And Oracle RSUs typically vest on the 5th of the month. Workers are being terminated mere days before that date, meaning the equity they earned over the past year simply vanishes back into the company's coffers.
It's awful. And the methodology behind the firings highlights how incredibly cold the industry has become. Workers describe the exact same scenario playing out over and over.
Oh, the Zoom calls.
Yeah. You receive a sudden, unexpected virtual one-on-one meeting invite from your manager. You log on, and an HR representative is just silent sitting in the video call.
It's a highly scripted, automated termination that lasts about 3 minutes. A decade of loyalty ended by a 3-minute video call.
It's brutal.
And the environment for the employees who survived the purge isn't much better. Remaining staff report that managers are explicitly ordering them to work harder to meet deliverables, even though entire sister teams have been wiped out overnight.
Over the last few years, the dominant fear has been, will an AI algorithm become smart enough to take my job? But this Oracle story exposes the hidden, much more immediate threat. It's not that the algorithm is replacing the human. It's that the sheer financial cost of buying the hardware to build the AI is bankrupting the budget for human workers today.
Wow, yeah.
The servers are wiping out the jobs long before the software is actually capable of doing the work. The efficiency of AI has basically trickled down to the firing process itself.
It really highlights the painful friction of this transition phase. Companies are making massive $156 billion bets on a future that hasn't arrived, and everyday employees are the ones absorbing the cost.
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap up today's analysis, we want to give a quick shout out to our second sponsor, Old Glory.
Yes. If you have a techie friend or family member, maybe someone who is obsessing over the newest Apple hardware or, trying to decipher command line prompts to build a website, Old Glory is the perfect place to grab them a gift.
They are an iconic store for music and sports fan merch. Whether you are hunting for classic band tees, sports memorabilia, or just a unique piece of apparel that shows off some personality, Old Glory has an incredibly deep selection.
And you can use the promo code SNARFL at checkout to get 15% off your entire purchase.
Just head over to oldglory.com and use the code SNARFL. That is 15% off your entire purchase at oldglory.com.
All right, let's take a step back and connect the dots on what we've covered today.
We started by looking at Apple turning 50, a company that anchored the physical hardware of the creator economy. They transitioned from beige boxes to citrus-colored laptops designed specifically for human expression and social media broadcasting.
Right. Then we examined Cloudflare's EmDash, an attempt to rewrite the actual plumbing of the internet. They're securing the web with sandboxed architecture and deploying BY 402 protocols to prepare for a world where AI agents, not humans, are the ones paying to crawl our content.
And finally, we looked at the harsh realities playing out at Oracle, which proves that the bridge to this AI future is paved with incredibly expensive hardware and profoundly painful human layoffs.
Which leaves us with a really unsettling tension to consider.
Yeah. For 50 years, the greatest tech companies built tools designed for human expression platforms for us to share our art, our thoughts, and our culture with other humans.
Exactly.
But now, as infrastructure shifts towards systems designed specifically for AI agents to crawl and pay for data, the entire dynamic changes.
If the primary audience for our content is no longer people, but massive algorithms paying us fractions of a cent to harvest our ideas for their language models, what happens to human culture?
Are we still creating art and sharing stories for each other, or are we slowly being conditioned to become data farmers, just feeding the machine?
It's a lot to think about.
It really is. We're here to help at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.